Hello, Dion here. It's 1 o'clock. That means it's time for 1 o'clock live. My broadcast for you, if you're a woman in senior leadership anywhere in the world and you work in the public sector or the third sector. So my name's Dion and my work is all about helping women in senior leadership hi Kemi, thank you for joining. My work is all about helping women, CEOs, directors, head of departments, head of service, women who lead or strategically positioned in the third sector or the public sector anywhere in the world. So if that's you and you are joining, say hi to me in the chat box. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm building a global community of brilliant women, change makers and leaders. And so when I see where you're watching from, it really does stir me on. So today's topic is about pressure. We're talking about senior leader pressure at work. And I'm going to share with you today 3 things that you could do, that I'm suggesting you really do if you are feeling, if you're feeling under the hammer, if you're feeling really stuck under pressure in senior leadership right now. You know, from my position as a woman, from my position as a leader, from my position as a change maker, from my position as someone who supports other leaders, I am hearing the sound of women under pressure. I'm hearing the sound in my soul. I'm hearing the sound of women under pressure. This is something that we need to talk about, we need to think about, we need to explore. Oftentimes, we're struggling with pressure in secret. That I hear so many women who are carrying a heavy weight professionally and even personally, and yet they have not told another soul about it. They don't even talk about it with themselves. It's like we just put our finger in our ears and we say we're going to ignore this. We're going to la 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 sing as though it's not happening. Well, I'm suggesting today that it's time to kind of look square in the face at what you're under and get it handled, right? And what I realize when I consider this, when I meditate on this pressure that I'm sensing, is that we as women are at this intersection of pressure. We're at the intersection. Now, the intersection just means we're in the middle of 3 main pressure points that I can see. And the first one is the pressure of the times and the seasons that we're in. It's really unusual times. It's really strange times that we're living in. And within that, we are experiencing our own seasons. I love what the book of Ecclesiastes has to say about times and seasons. And I thought I'd look it up because it's been really playing on my mind over the last week or so. That there is a time, it says in Ecclesiastes, the wisest, richest man in the world wrote these words. He said, there is a time for everything, a season for everything under the heavens, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep and cry, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to scatter stones, a time to gather them up, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. He says, I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race, and he's confident. Solomon is confident that God has made everything beautiful in its time and season. Wow. That there is that women are at the intersection of pressure, and the first pressure that I see is the season that we're in globally and even our own personal season. I'm talking from experience that if you are an influencer, if you are called to lead and influence, it's my personal conviction that you will be challenged on your journey on your development journey to experience the seasons of change and transformation. And if you are called to influence transformation in your industry, if you are called to bring change to your organization or your community or your world, that you first will go through the seasons of change, the seasons of transformation, the seasons of improvement, the seasons of innovation. You too will experience that on a very personal level. I'm telling you, I can testify that if you are an influencer, you will have to experience the seasons that the people who you are leading, the people, the situations, the systems that you are changing, the seasons that they will go through, you must go through too on a very personal and a deep level. So we're under pressure, and the first source of the pressure is the times and the seasons that we find ourselves in globally and we find ourselves in personally. Okay, so the second pressure point that I think that women are in amongst is contemporary power structure. Contemporary power structure. Believe it or not, that here, even now in 2018, that the power structures that we find ourselves in as CEOs and directors and high-level influencers in the third and public sector, the power structures that mean that we're still the minority. Women are still the minority. There's still not equality, that we're disproportionately represented at this level. And these power structures, these hierarchies that we find ourselves leading in, are a source of real pressure. That the power structures that we work in can be a prolific breeding ground, can't they? For isolation and for loneliness and for struggle, power struggles and isms and schisms and politics. That the power structures that we find ourselves as high-level leaders in the corporate space is that it is a source of pressure. That we where there's so much going on around us in the pecking order of things, that we find ourselves under tremendous pressure. There's so much demand being placed on organizations and industry right now, and that pressure relates to the people who are in the positions. That's you and I. So our power structures are another powerful source of pressure for women right now. And then the third pressure point that I find us embroiled in as women in high-level leadership is the inner press for progress, the inner pressure that's mounting in the hearts and the souls of many women that I'm in connection with, in my own heart and mind, and I see it in humanity generally, that there is a global waking up of humanity, and we are restless. There's a pressure that's mounting up on the inside of us. We're saying we want more. We know that there's more for us to be. We might not be able to put our finger on it and clarify it and express it and understand it very clearly right now, but we're feeling the pressure. We're feeling the press on the inside for more to be, more to experience, more to see happening in the world that we're co-creating. This pressure is mounting up on the inside. And so I've been meditating on all of this pressure, these three pressures in particular that I have been experiencing, and I see and I hear the sound of women all around the globe experiencing too. And what I see in this pressure, being at the intersection of all of these three pressures, is that during my meditation, I started to understand that this was like, so some of you will know that I was a midwife before, a leadership consultant, and I spent many years as a midwife. I still consider myself a midwife. And as I was meditating on these three pressures, and the women right stuck in the middle of these three pressures and being pressed and being squeezed by these three pressures, it reminded me of what I am familiar with, the uterus, the womb that squeezes a baby squeezes a baby at the time of labor, squeezes that baby at the time when it's time to move, to ascend to a new dimension, to ascend from inside its mother's womb to out into the world. When it's time for that baby to move, these pressures come from the uterus to the muscular wall that surrounds it and presses and squeezes the baby because it's time for the baby to move to another level. I feel this so powerfully. I'm a little bit emotional about this message today because I'm speaking to myself as I'm speaking to you. And these muscles are pushing and squeezing humanity. We're being pressed. We're under such pressure. We're under such pressure. But I've come to let you know today that this pressure is moving you to a whole new dimension of influence. This pressure is squeezing you to a whole new capacity to make our world a better place. This pressure is your friend. I can't believe I'm getting so emotional. This pressure is your friend. This pressure is your friend. And it really depends. It's really important how you respond to this pressure, because I see so many women quitting. I see so many women suffering in silence. I see so many women interpreting the pressure as personal failure or evidence that you are not right for the job, the evidence that you don't fit, that you can't do, that you're inadequate. But let me tell you something. It's really important to get it straight what this pressure is representing. And I want to share with you today my suggestions about how, if you find yourself in the intersection of this pressure, these three powerful forces that we are surrounded by right now, I want to share with you these three approaches, these three methods that you can use, these three strategies that you can use to reframe the pressure and to navigate it at such a time as this. Whew, I can't believe that I got myself so emotional. Bear with me a second. So here's what I want you to do in the face of this pressure. I want you to be like that baby in the womb and yield to the pressure. Let me tell you, I've been a midwife for many years. I think thousands of pregnant women, labouring women, I have laid my hands on thousands of labouring women, literally. I understand this process intimately. And at one point when I was on labour ward, I remember being like nudged in my spirit to consider, everybody considers the mother. Everybody considers what the mother's going through in labour. But I felt myself being prompted to consider what the baby was going through. And the baby was pressed on every side. You see, this big muscular wall called the womb is pressing the baby from behind. So the baby's head is down, the baby's bum is up usually, and on top of the baby's bum is a mighty force where the strongest muscles of the womb are pushing the baby down. But on the baby's head is at the bottom, facing the birth canal. That head is facing resistance. That head has a powerful wall of resistance pressing against it. So as it's being pressed down, it's also being pressed in. It's like being pressed on every side. But the baby doesn't resist. The baby yields to this process. I looked at the word yield, and it's about giving way. It's about acquiescing, surrendering, submitting, relenting, accepting, conceding to the pressure. It's a it's a refusal to fight it. It's a refusal to resist. It's an acceptance and a yielding, a giving way to it. It also means to give up. You know, like when agriculturists will say that the ground yielded a powerful harvest, a plentiful harvest. It means that whatever's in it is being given up. And that's what the baby does. The baby just gives up. Whatever the baby's about is just being yielded to this process. And that's a very powerful thing. I think that I'm still meditating on the word yield. I've been meditating on the word yield for a while. And I'm suggesting that you need to meditate on what it would take for you to just stop the struggle, stop the fight, yield to this process. So the first thing you need to do is yield. The second thing you need to do is trust the process. Trust. You need to trust. You need to develop faith. You need to develop a confidence that I will not die in this, that this will not kill me. This cannot kill my spirit. This cannot kill my identity, the truth of who I am. This cannot hurt me. This is just to help me. This step is about trusting that you are okay, even in the pressure, even in the intensity of the pressure. You are still okay, and it's about trusting that. You know, that I was thinking about the baby, and the baby is surrounded by systems that are ready to take care of it. Like the body has amazing capacity. Its body, the baby's body has amazing capacity to yield to the process of birthing. In fact, the process of birthing is beneficial for the baby, even though it is as beneficial as it is challenging. Ooh, I like that. It is as beneficial as it is challenging. The process for the baby is as beneficial as it is challenging. Yeah, I'm seeing things even as I'm speaking to you. That you should trust that the baby's body is there to help it. The mother's body is there to help the baby. The midwife is there to help the mother. The medical team is there to help the midwife. There are systems all around designed to help. Even though that baby may not know it or see it, there's provision. There's provision for the pressure. There's provision for the pressure. So I'm encouraging you that if you find yourself at the intersection of this pressure, trust that there are forces positioned to support you, even if you don't see them, even if you can't feel them. And the third thing that I need you to do is to mine for the gold. Now, I made a video last week about mining for gold, but basically this is an acronym that you can use to assess where you're at and what's happening and what your response should be. And gold is for what's going on. O is for ownership of your ability to co-create your situation. L is for looking for the lies and treating them with the truth, and D is for finding out what is it that if there's anything that you need to be doing in this time of pressure. So go back and watch that video. I'll put the link in the chat box so you can watch that video again. But if you find yourself at the intersection of pressure, then you need to be 1, yielding to the pressure, 2, trusting the process, and 3, mining for the gold. I know I've been on for a while today, but I really needed to get this out to you because I hear the sound of women under pressure. Pressure is not going to kill you. And listen, if you want to talk more to me about developing your own strategy for dealing with the pressure that you are under at work, then I advise you to click the link that's in the title of this video, because I have a special offer that I'd like to extend to you over June, where you and I can get together to really hone in on finding your gold and looking at where you're at and developing your power to influence strategy, even in times of severe pressure. I hope today served you well. Thank you so much for joining me, Kemi. Thank you for joining on the replay. If you're joining on the replay, put #replay, and any comments that you make, I'll respond to later. If you'd like to know when I'm going live, put #reminder in the box, and I'll remind you next time I'm going live. I will be back tomorrow, and I'll be talking about what you do when you're pregnant with possibility in senior leadership. And I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye.